Story: Millionaire husband brings his mistress to Fashion Week. Then his pregnant wife takes the runway as the brand's owner. Disclaimer: this is an original fictional story presented for entertainment. Every character, company, brand, location-specific business situation, and dramatic event has been created for the story. Any similarity to actual persons or entities is accidental. If another woman arrived at Fashion Week on your husband's arm, then sat in the seat with your name on it while you were 8 months pregnant, would you walk away or take your place? Tell me what you would do and stay with Hannah, because Ryan Prescott is about to learn that the chair he lets Madison steal is the smallest thing in the room that belongs to his wife. By midnight, Ryan Prescott would learn that the woman he told to stay out of his world had quietly owned its most important door all along. Camera shutters rattled through the September night. A black limousine stopped beneath the blazing entrance to New York Fashion Week, and Ryan Prescott stepped onto the carpet wearing a midnight tuxedo, an expensive watch, and the practiced smile of a man who had spent years making sure important people remembered his name. Then Madison Cole stepped out behind him. She wasn't his wife. 28, brunette, razor-sharp beneath the lights. Madison wore a pearl silver Villain couture gown that moved around her body like liquid metal. She slipped one hand through Ryan's arm. The photographers erupted. "Ryan, Madison, look here. Mr. Prescott, where's Hannah?" One reporter pushed forward. "Isn't your wife 8 months pregnant?" Ryan paused, just long enough for the microphones to catch his answer. "Hannah prefers staying out of my world." Madison smiled. A few people laughed. Phones recorded everything. Ryan never looked toward the glass doors behind him. If he had, he might have seen Hannah Sterling Prescott standing inside. 8 months pregnant. Alone. Beautiful in a simple pearl maternity dress, her long honey platinum hair falling over her shoulders, her pale blue eyes fixed on the husband arriving with another woman. Hannah heard every word. "My world." Her baby shifted beneath her ribs. Hannah placed one hand over her belly. "I know, sweetheart," she whispered. "That hurt me too. Stay with me." Because Ryan had spent 4 years believing Hannah was lucky to carry his last name. Tonight, he was about to discover how little that name mattered inside this building. Hannah entered quietly. No entourage followed her. No photographers shouted her name. She preferred it that way. Then Ryan saw her. His smile disappeared. Madison noticed immediately. "What's wrong?" Ryan didn't answer. He crossed the marble floor toward his wife. "Hannah." She turned. "Hello, Ryan." His eyes moved over her dress, then toward the entrance, checking who might be watching. "What are you doing here?" "Attending Fashion Week." "You're 8 months pregnant." "I'm aware. You shouldn't have come." The words were quiet. Cold. Hannah studied the man in front of her. Once, he had placed both hands over her stomach and cried when he felt their daughter kick. Tonight, he looked at her pregnancy as though it were an inconvenience to his photograph. Madison approached and slipped her arm through his again. The gesture was deliberate. Hannah saw it. Ryan saw Hannah see it. Still, he didn't move away. "This is a business event," he said. "I don't need anything complicated tonight." Hannah's eyes dropped briefly to Madison's hand on her husband's arm, then back to him. "You're right." Ryan frowned. "About what?" Hannah's voice stayed soft. "I shouldn't have needed to come." For half a second, something uncertain passed across his face. Then arrogance returned. "Just don't make a scene." Hannah almost smiled. "I wasn't planning to." Ryan exhaled and turned away with Madison. Hannah watched them disappear toward the VIP section beneath the Villain emblem. Then she opened the small cream clutch in her hand. Inside was a matte black credential no ordinary guest had been issued. Her photograph, her maiden name, and beneath it, 2 words Ryan Prescott had never imagined could belong to his quiet pregnant wife. Hannah Sterling, principal owner. Hannah closed the clutch. Across the ballroom, the lights began to dim. Ryan believed she had entered his world uninvited. In less than an hour, he would discover he had brought his mistress into hers. For years earlier, Ryan Prescott still loved the things about Hannah that money would later teach him to despise. Her simplicity, her silence, the way she could walk into an expensive restaurant wearing almost no jewelry and never once check who was watching. Back then, Prescott Capital occupied 2 cramped rooms above a law office in Manhattan. Ryan worked 14-hour days, drove a used BMW, and measured success by whether he could make payroll on Friday. Hannah never complained. She brought him coffee after midnight, read presentations on their apartment floor, listened when nobody else believed his company would survive. One day, Ryan told her, staring at the city from their tiny kitchen window, "People are going to know the Prescott name." Hannah smiled. "Just make sure you still know yourself." He kissed her. "That's why I have you." For a while, she believed him. Then the money came. One successful investment became 5. Prescott Capital moved downtown. Ryan's suits became custom. His photograph appeared in financial magazines. Invitations arrived from private clubs that once wouldn't return his calls. And slowly, almost invisibly, Ryan began treating the woman who had stood beside him before success as evidence of a life he wanted everyone to forget. "Maybe wear the blue dress tonight." "What's wrong with this one?" "Nothing. It's just simple." Simple. At first, Hannah thought it was only a word. Then it became a category. She was too simple for investor dinners. Too quiet for charity galas. Not connected enough for luxury events. "You're not really a fashion person," Ryan once told her while adjusting his cufflinks. Hannah almost laughed. If he had looked closely, he might have understood why. The Sterling family had been tied to American textile investments and European fashion houses for generations. Hannah's mother, Catherine Sterling, had spent decades consolidating those interests around Valene, transforming the struggling label into one of the most protected luxury brands in the industry. When Catherine died, Hannah inherited control through the Sterling family trust. She never announced it. Hannah had watched money distort too many relationships growing up. Her mother had warned her about that. People show you different faces when they know what you can give them. Hannah wanted Ryan's real face, so she never made wealth the center of their marriage. Before the wedding, attorneys disclosed the separate trust structure. Ryan signed the acknowledgement while answering emails on his phone. Hannah remembered sliding the documents back toward him. "You should read everything." Ryan grinned. "Your family investments are yours. I'm building my own." He signed the final page. "Someday you'll be Mrs. Prescott, and that will mean something." Hannah had smiled then. Years later, she would remember the sentence differently. Ryan thought she had married up. He never considered the possibility that she had married quietly. Then, after 3 years of marriage, Hannah saw 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. She sat on the bathroom floor with tears running down her face. Ryan found her there. "What happened?" Hannah held up the test. He stared, then dropped to his knees. "We're having a baby?" She nodded. Ryan laughed and cried at the same time. He pressed his forehead against hers, then placed both hands over her stomach even though there was nothing to feel yet. "My girls," he whispered. For several weeks, Hannah saw the old Ryan again. He brought home baby books and fell asleep with his hand over her belly. Then Valene began attracting new attention from private equity circles. Ryan became obsessed with getting inside the luxury sector. Paris meetings appeared on his calendar. Milan followed. His phone started turning face down at dinner. His hand stopped reaching for Hannah at night. And one name began appearing with strange frequency around his new fashion contacts. Madison Cole. Model. Influencer. Beautiful. Connected. Everything Ryan now believed a powerful man's life should look like. Hannah noticed. She said nothing. Not yet. Because the woman Ryan considered too simple for his new world had learned something from old money that he had never learned from new money. When something valuable begins to disappear, you don't start by screaming. You start by watching. Hannah did not discover the affair through a lipstick stain, a hotel receipt, or a message left glowing on Ryan's phone. She found it inside a photograph that was never supposed to exist. 11 days before Fashion Week, Hannah was working from Valene's private executive suite when a secure folder arrived from the brand's photography director. New York campaign. Final contact sheets for owner approval. Hannah opened it between calls, one hand resting beneath her 8-month belly. Hundreds of images appeared. Models backstage. Lighting tests. Couture fittings. Madison Cole smiling beneath a wall of mirrors. Hannah almost moved on. Then she saw him. Ryan. He stood behind Madison in the corner of one photograph, mostly hidden by a clothing rack. His hands were at the back of her neck, fastening a diamond necklace. Madison's head tilted toward him. His face was close to hers. Too close. Hannah stopped scrolling. The room became very quiet. Her daughter kicked beneath her ribs. "It's okay," Hannah whispered, though she wasn't sure which of them she was comforting. She enlarged the image. One photograph could mislead, so Hannah looked closer. "Send me the full contact sheet," she told Valene's photography director, including rejected frames. 20 minutes later, the The complete sequence arrived. Ryan fastening the necklace. Madison touching his wrist. Ryan whispering into her ear. Madison laughing. Then one frame taken seconds later. His hand at her waist. Her lips against his cheek. Hannah stared at it without crying. Then she checked the metadata. Milan. 6 weeks earlier. Another archive showed Paris. A private industry dinner Ryan had told Hannah was investors only. Madison had been sitting beside him. Then came something worse. Hannah asked Valen's partnership team whether Ryan Prescott had made any recent requests involving Madison. The answer arrived that afternoon. Prescott Capital had approached an outside marketing agency connected to the Fashion Week campaign, repeatedly presenting Madison as a potential future face of Valen. Ryan had no authority to promise that. None. Yet he had been speaking as if the decision was already his. That evening, Hannah sat across from him at dinner. Ryan barely looked up from his phone. Long day, she asked. Brutal. Fashion. Mostly. Hannah watched him cut his steak. How's Madison Cole? The knife stopped. One beat. Then continued. Who? Hannah almost smiled. The model. Oh, her. Ryan reached for his wine. She's useful. Good connections. Useful. Hannah thought of his hand around Madison's waist. Are you working with her? Possibly. He looked up now. Why? Just curious. His shoulders relaxed. That was the moment Hannah understood something painful. Ryan wasn't afraid of hurting her. He was only afraid of being caught. So she gave him no warning. Over the next week, Hannah quietly preserved what she needed. Photographs, dates, business representations, communications routed through Valen's outside partners. She contacted her attorney and began preparing for divorce. At breakfast, she still asked whether Ryan wanted coffee. At dinner, she still answered ordinary questions. Ryan mistook that calm for ignorance, never realizing that Hannah had stopped asking him for an explanation. Then, 3 nights before Fashion Week, he walked into their bedroom adjusting his cufflinks. Friday changed. Hannah closed the book in her lap. What changed? I'm attending Valen with Madison. Silence. She's useful for the fashion side, he added. It's business. Hannah looked at the father of her unborn daughter. And me? Ryan sighed. You're 8 months pregnant. Honestly, staying home would be better. For me? He didn't answer. Then he smiled as though softening the insult. This could finally be my way into Valen. Hannah felt the baby move beneath her palm. Ryan kissed her forehead and left the room. He never noticed that she no longer closed her eyes when he kissed her. Hannah waited until his footsteps disappeared downstairs. Then she picked up her phone and called Victoria Shaw. Hannah, I need one change to Fashion Week. Anything. Hannah looked at her wedding ring. Keep my ownership announcement exactly as planned. A pause. But don't tell Ryan I'm coming. Victoria understood immediately. And if he brings Madison? Hannah looked toward the closed door. Her voice stayed calm. Save her a seat. Madison Cole made her first mistake before the runway lights even dimmed. She sat in Hannah's chair. The Valen ballroom shimmered beneath suspended crystal lights, every polished surface reflecting diamonds, champagne, and people accustomed to having their names printed on things. At the center of the front row, 3 ivory cards waited beneath the gold Valen emblem. Ryan Prescott. Madison Cole. Hannah Sterling Prescott. Ryan saw the 3rd card first. His smile disappeared. What the hell? Madison followed his eyes. She's coming. She shouldn't be. Ryan looked toward an event coordinator. There must be a mistake. There wasn't. But before he could ask, Madison calmly lifted Hannah's card, placed it on the empty chair beside her, and sat down. Problem solved. Ryan hesitated, then smiled. That was his mistake. 40 seconds later, Hannah entered the ballroom. 8 months pregnant. Pearl maternity dress. Honey platinum hair falling softly over her shoulders. No entourage. No need for one. Conversations shifted as she approached. Ryan stood immediately. Hannah. She looked at him, then at Madison, then at her name card lying on the wrong chair. Madison remained seated. Oh, she said. Was this yours? Hannah's pale blue eyes settled on her. Yes. Madison crossed one leg over the other, letting the Valen couture gown spill across the seat. I assumed there was a seating error. There wasn't. Ryan stepped closer. Hannah, don't start. She turned toward him. I haven't. Then sit over there. He pointed toward the 3rd chair. Hannah stared at him. Her husband had brought another woman to Fashion Week, allowed her to take his pregnant wife's seat, and now expected Hannah to move so nobody important would feel uncomfortable. Madison smiled. Honestly, Hannah, this section is mostly for people connected to the brand. Two editors nearby stopped speaking. A phone slowly tilted toward them. Hannah heard it. So did Ryan. He said nothing. Madison continued. People who actually matter to Valen. Hannah rested one hand beneath her belly. Her daughter kicked. Actually, she said softly, that one is mine. Madison laughed. It's a chair. Then standing shouldn't be difficult. The smile vanished from Madison's face. Ryan exhaled sharply. Enough. He signaled to a floor manager. Can you move my wife's seat? The manager checked her tablet, then looked at Hannah. I'm sorry, Mr. Prescott. Mrs. Prescott's seating assignment can't be changed. Ryan frowned. Why not? It requires executive authorization. I'm asking you to authorize it. I can't. Ryan's voice hardened. I'm one of tonight's VIP guests. Yes, sir. The manager remained perfectly professional. Mrs. Prescott's access level supersedes guest seating changes. Silence. Madison slowly stood. Ryan looked from the manager to Hannah. What access level? Hannah said nothing. Across the ballroom, Victoria Shaw stood beside the backstage curtain in a black tailored suit. She had been watching the entire exchange. Hannah met her eyes. Victoria touched the headset at her ear. She's here, she said quietly. Proceed. Ryan noticed. Why is Victoria Shaw looking at you? Hannah reached for her name card and placed it back in front of her seat. Hannah Sterling Prescott. Maybe you should ask her. Madison's expression tightened. You know Victoria? Hannah sat down carefully. Yes. How? Ryan asked. But the ballroom lights suddenly dropped. Darkness swallowed the marble, the champagne, the whispers. One heartbeat of silence. Then another. A low cello note rolled through the room. The massive screen above the runway flickered to life. White letters appeared against black. Valen presents, erased. The first model stepped into the spotlight. Ryan sat beside Hannah, but he wasn't watching the runway anymore. He was staring at his wife. For 4 years, he had assumed Hannah was the least important person in every powerful room they entered. Tonight, for the first time, the room itself was beginning to tell him he had been wrong. For one long second, Ryan Prescott thought the spotlight had stopped on Hannah by mistake. Then Victoria Shaw looked directly at his wife and said, Hannah Sterling, would you join me? The ballroom went silent. Ryan turned so quickly his chair scraped against the floor. What? Hannah placed one hand beneath her 8-month belly and began to rise. Ryan reached toward her, then stopped when she looked at him. Hannah, whatever this is, watch, she said. Madison stared from Hannah to Victoria, her confidence draining by the second. Camera shutters began firing. Hannah stepped into the aisle. Victoria waited beneath the gold Valen emblem. For years, she continued, Valen's principal ownership has remained private by deliberate choice. Our controlling interest is held through the Sterling Family Trust. Ryan stopped breathing. Sterling. He knew the name. He had signed documents carrying it before their wedding. He had dismissed them as Hannah's family investments. Small. Old. Irrelevant. Victoria smiled. Tonight, we recognize the woman who controls 68% of Valen and has quietly guided its transformation from behind the scenes. Hannah Sterling Prescott. Applause broke across the ballroom. First the executives, then designers, then investors who suddenly understood why Victoria had been watching the quiet blonde woman in the pearl maternity dress. Ryan remained frozen. 68%, he whispered. Madison looked down at the Valen couture gown she had chosen because Ryan told her it would make the right people notice them. Her fingers touched the embroidered label at her waist. Hannah reached the runway. Victoria extended her hand and helped her onto the stage. The massive screen changed behind them. Hannah Sterling, principal owner, Valen. Memories rearranged themselves on Ryan's face. Hannah knowing executives she had supposedly never met. Hannah recognizing fabrics before he did. Her access level. The Sterling Trust papers. Her warning before their wedding. You should read everything. He had seen the pieces. He had simply considered his wife too unimportant to connect them. Madison stood. You knew I was wearing Valen tonight. Hannah looked at the pearl silver gown. I knew the collection. And you let me come here dressed in your brand? I didn't choose your date. A few people nearby looked down to hide their reactions. Hannah did not play to them. She turned toward the audience instead. I stayed private because my mother taught me that a company should never become a family trophy. Valen belongs to the work before it belongs to any surname. She thanked the design and production teams, then announced a 3-year preservation fund for archival techniques and small specialist workshops that Valen relied on. Ryan listened with a strange mixture of shock and impatience. When Hannah stepped down from the runway, he moved toward her. How long have you owned this? Before I met you. Why didn't you tell me? I told you about the trust. Not this. You didn't ask. His shock shifted into calculation. Hannah recognized the change immediately. We're married, he said. If you control 68%, this affects our financial position. There it was. No apology. No question about their daughter. His first instinct after learning the truth was to calculate his share of it. Hannah's face became very still. Any financial question belongs with counsel, she said. Not under a spotlight. Ryan frowned. So you already have a lawyer? Yes. The word landed cleanly. Victoria stepped beside Hannah. The second half of the program is beginning. Ryan looked around at the cameras. He wanted an argument because an argument might let him regain control of the story. Hannah refused to give him one. After the show, she said. Then she returned to her seat, the seat Madison had tried to take, and watched the runway while Ryan sat beside her with nothing left to say. The show ended 40 minutes later. By then, Ryan's phone had vibrated so many times that even Madison had stopped pretending not to notice. Hannah stayed for the designer's final bow, congratulated the collection team, and spoke briefly with 2 museum curators about the preservation fund. Only after the ballroom began to empty did she follow Victoria into a small private salon behind the press area. Ryan came after her. Madison followed him. Charles Whitaker, counsel for the Sterling Family Trust, was waiting inside with Hannah's matrimonial attorney on speakerphone. The setting was almost disappointingly ordinary. A round table, for chairs, bottled water, and garment bags hanging against one wall. Ryan shut the door. Let's get this straight. Hannah and I are married. Whatever is in that trust doesn't mean I have no rights. Charles nodded. Correct. Marriage creates legal rights and obligations. It also doesn't erase every distinction between marital and separate property. Ryan seemed thrown by the measured answer. If there are claims concerning appreciation, maintenance, or other marital property, those belong in the matrimonial process. No one here is announcing the outcome tonight. Hannah watched some of the fight leave Ryan's face. Precision gave him less to attack. Then why are you here? He asked. Because Valen has a separate business issue, Victoria said. She slid a 1-page corporate statement across the table. It said only that Valen had not entered or authorized a strategic partnership with Prescott Capital and had not authorized Ryan or his firm to speak for the company, its principal ownership, or the Sterling Trust. The statement made no judgment about Ryan's intent. It simply established Valen's position and left his own communications for his counsel, investors, and counterparties to examine. Ryan went pale. Madison picked up the page. You told me Valen was coming into Prescott Capital. I said we were discussing opportunities. You said you had family-level access. Ryan's eyes flashed. Madison. Charles raised a hand. We're not here to adjudicate what Mr. Prescott told anyone. His counsel can address his communications with his investors. Ryan's phone vibrated again. This time he looked. One financing partner had paused discussions pending internal review. Another asked for clarification of all Valen references in Prescott Capital materials. Ryan locked the screen. You did this, he said to Hannah. I didn't send those messages, Hannah replied. I didn't make those representations. Valen is correcting its own record. You could defend me. That sentence hurt because it was so familiar. Even now, he wanted the wife he had humiliated to protect the image he had built without her. Hannah rested a hand over their daughter. I've defended you from consequences for years. From what? From the truth about how you treated me. Madison stood abruptly. There was never a guaranteed campaign. Was there? Ryan looked at her. I could have gotten you there. That's not what you said. You benefited from the introductions. Madison's expression changed. So did you. Silence. She removed the small VIP pin from her clutch and placed it beside the statement. I'm leaving. Ryan stood. Madison, don't turn this into a performance. She gave him a tired look. You brought me to Fashion Week on your arm while your pregnant wife was sitting in my seat. The performance started before I got here. Then she turned to Hannah. I knew he was married. I'm not going to insult you by pretending otherwise. Hannah held her gaze. Good. I'm sorry. Then learn from it. Madison nodded once and walked out. Ryan stared after her, then sank back into the chair. What do you want from me? Hannah considered the question carefully. Tonight? Nothing. Nothing. Tomorrow, call your lawyer. After that, show up when our daughter needs you. Ryan looked at Hannah's belly. You're leaving me. I'm leaving the marriage, she said. That is not the same thing as erasing her father. The distinction silenced him. Hannah had no interest in using Grace as punishment. New York would treat parenting around the child's best interests, not around who had won a fashion show argument. She intended to act accordingly. Charles gathered the papers. Victoria opened the door. Outside, crews were already removing chairs. The room that had felt like the center of Ryan's universe an hour earlier was becoming an empty event space. Hannah walked out first. Near the coat check, Ryan caught up with Hannah one final time. Most photographers had moved toward the designer exit, leaving the corridor quieter than the ballroom. He looked older without the flashes. Hannah. She stopped. We can go home. We can talk without lawyers. We are talking. Not like this. His voice broke. I made mistakes. Hannah looked at him. You made choices. Madison was, don't blame her for your vows. Ryan closed his mouth. That, more than any accusation, seemed to reach him. Hannah's fingers moved toward her wedding ring. The platinum band had been there through 4 anniversaries, failed deals, first millions, and 2 pink lines on a pregnancy test. Through the weeks when Ryan used to fall asleep with his hand across her stomach. Through the months when the phone went face down and his attention went elsewhere. She slid the ring free. Ryan's face changed. Don't. I need you to understand something. Hannah took his hand and placed the band in his palm. This is about us. Not Valen. Not your investors. Not Madison. His fingers closed automatically around the ring. What about Grace? It was the first time that night he used the name they had chosen for their daughter. Hannah's eyes filled. Grace deserves 2 parents who don't use her as a reason to stay inside a dishonest marriage. You're taking her from me? No. Hannah's voice sharpened. I said the opposite. You can ask for parenting time. We can work through counsel, and, if we need help, mediation or court. I will make decisions based on what is good for her, not on what hurts you. Ryan looked down at the ring. And if I change? Hannah breathed slowly. Then be a better father. Don't make improvement a bargain for getting your wife back. He flinched. She knew it sounded final because it was. Outside the glass doors, September rain had begun to darken the pavement. Victoria's car waited at the curb. Hannah put on her coat. I loved you before the money, she said. That's why this hurts. But love doesn't require me to keep volunteering for disrespect. Ryan's eyes filled. Hannah felt her own tears rise and let them. Strength did not mean pretending grief was easy. She stepped into the car without applause. The next months unfolded through paperwork, appointments, and ordinary life. Prescott Capital did not disappear overnight. Several prospective partners paused or withdrew while they reviewed what Ryan had represented. Others stayed. Ryan remained wealthy, though less certain of the reputation he had treated as permanent. Hannah never called investors on his behalf and never called them against him. Valen's statement remained factual and limited. Madison's existing work was reviewed by the same executives who handled other talent relationships. When that engagement later ended, Hannah was not part of the decision. The divorce proceedings moved forward. Parenting discussions were more difficult than either of them expected. Ryan sometimes arrived defensive. Hannah sometimes arrived angrier than she wanted to admit. A mediator repeatedly brought them back to one question. What does Grace need? That question improved the room. When Grace was born 3 weeks later, healthy and furious at the world, Ryan was at the hospital. He held her awkwardly at first, then stared down as if he had finally encountered something status could not explain. Hannah watched him cry. She did not mistake tears for repair, but she allowed herself to hope that fatherhood might teach him a form of love that was not built around possession. 5 months after the night that changed her marriage, the name on the chair had changed. Not the woman, not her strength, just the name she had chosen to carry again. Hannah Sterling. The ivory card rested in the center of Valen's front row beneath the soft gold light of another New York Fashion Week. Beside it sat a second card, smaller and almost playful among the names of editors, designers, celebrities, and buyers. Grace Sterling. Hannah smiled when she saw it. In her arms, her 4-month-old daughter slept beneath a cream cashmere blanket, one tiny fist pressed against her mother's jacket. You have better seating than most adults, Hannah whispered. Grace stirred but did not wake. Motherhood had changed the rhythm of Hannah's life. There were bottles beside fabric samples now. Board meetings scheduled around feedings. Midnight emails answered with Grace sleeping against her shoulder. Some mornings Hannah arrived at Villain with polished hair and 2 hours of sleep. Other mornings, she canceled everything and stayed home. Motherhood was not the elegant fantasy magazines sold. It was exhausting, frightening, tender, funny, and real. The divorce case was still moving through the normal process. Hannah and Ryan had reached temporary agreements on several financial and parenting issues, while the rest continued through counsel. The Sterling Trust remained one part of a larger financial picture, while the remaining questions continued through counsel. Ryan saw Grace regularly. He was learning. The first time she cried through an entire visit, he texted Hannah after 20 minutes asking what he was doing wrong. Hannah typed 3 angry answers and deleted them. Then she sent, "Check the diaper. Walk slowly. She likes the hallway light." 20 minutes later, he replied with a photograph of Grace asleep against his chest. No caption. Hannah stared at it for a long time. Leaving him had not required her to hate every future version of him. It only required her to stop confusing hope with access to her marriage. Prescott Capital continued in a more cautious form after the review of its Villain references. Ryan lost some opportunities and kept others. The harder consequence was having to earn credibility again, one cautious conversation at a time. Madison moved on to different work. Villain did too. 30 seconds, Victoria whispered, taking the seat on Hannah's left. A reporter near the runway noticed the 2 name cards. "Miss Sterling?" "One question." Hannah nodded. The reporter pointed toward the smaller chair. "Who is Grace Sterling?" Hannah looked down at the sleeping baby. "My daughter." The reporter smiled. "And the seat is hers." For a moment, Hannah remembered Madison sitting in her place while Ryan told her to move. People who actually matter to Villain. Hannah carefully placed Grace in the cushioned chair for only a moment while adjusting the blanket, keeping one protective hand beside her. "It's hers," she said. "Why?" Hannah looked at her daughter. "Because she'll never have to earn the right to belong." The lights dimmed. A single piano note filled the room. The screen above the runway illuminated. "Villain, know your worth before someone else prices it for you." Hannah lifted Grace back into her arms. Her eyes filled, but she did not look away. The first model appeared. Applause rose. Hannah glanced at her own name card. No Prescott. No borrowed status. Just Sterling. 5 months earlier, Ryan had entered Fashion Week believing Hannah was an inconvenient pregnant wife standing outside the world he wanted. He had mistaken visibility for importance and silence for weakness. Hannah no longer needed him to understand the difference. Grace's tiny fingers closed around her thumb as the runway lights rose. Some doors open because of wealth. The ones that matter most open when a person finally knows she belongs before anyone else says so.